Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jacqueline and today is a Thriller Thursday video, which means that I am going to tell you my reviews or recommendations for the latest thriller books that I have read. So we actually have quite a couple books to go over today, and so I'm just gonna go in order of when I last read them. If you haven't seen my other Thriller Thursday videos, I will definitely link the playlist down below so that way you can check them out, because I make a video every single time I finish at least like 2 or 3 thriller books. And since thrillers are like my absolute favorite, I make these quite often. And so I read a lot of thriller books. And I want to apologize about my voice. I'm sorry. I'm not really like sick, but my voice, like I had a sore throat and then it's like, I don't know, it sounds weird. So I don't normally sound like this. But the first thriller that we're going to start out with is I Know Who You Are by Alice Feeney. Now, I actually read this back in March, but I had to really like think about what I was going to like rate and review it. And it actually hasn't even come out yet. I read an advanced copy that I actually won from a giveaway. Now, don't worry, there's not going to be any spoilers in this video. So you can definitely watch this whole video and just kind of get a feel of whether or not these thrillers are going to be for you or not. I rated I Know Who You Are 4 stars, and I actually really did enjoy the book. It was just the ending that made me have to drop down my star rating to 4 instead of 5 stars. Now, I actually really love Alice Feeney. I read her book Sometimes I Lie last year, I believe, and that was a very easy 5-star read. I loved that book so much. So I had very high expectations going into this second book of hers, and it really was just the ending. The ending is definitely one of those like icky feeling thriller type of endings. So if you aren't okay with uncomfortable type of settings or like just really bad things in general, then you probably shouldn't read this book. If you have read things like by Karen Slaughter, for instance, Pretty Girls, and you have read like really deep, dark, disturbing things, then this book probably will be right up your alley. Now, Alice did have a lot of things going on in this book, so that was one of the reasons why I dropped the star, because I felt like there was too much going on. There was too much to follow. And then by the end of the book, I felt that I was still confused. I didn't really know what was going on. I didn't really know what happened, what the ending actually was. And it just felt too far-fetched for me. Now, what I did like about this book is that I love Alice Feeney's actual writing style. I think that her writing style is very easy to read. It's very easy for me to read her books in one day, whereas a lot of other thrillers might have too much detail going on, and then I kind of have to like space it out. But her books are very, very easy to read. So if that's something that you like or dislike, then you can definitely factor that in. Now, this book was about this actress that had figured out, I guess, that her husband went missing. What happens is like she wakes up the one morning and she realizes her husband is missing. He like took $10,000 out of her account. And then she has this like stalker in the story that is like dressing up as her, and it like the story goes back and forth between her now and her as a child. And so I actually found like that really, really great. I loved that part of the story, like the going the back and the forth, just because you would learn something in a future chapter and then you would go back and you would see like why she is the way she is, or you know, something like that from the actual like, you know, past, her own past as a child. So I really, really thought that that writing was like really, really great. I love the storyline of when she was a child. It was just really hard to figure out it was just hard to see the ending coming from those stories as a child. So it was just, I felt like Alice did an amazing job writing the whole book until just tying all the loose ends together was not that great. I also feel like this is definitely one of those books where the synopsis literally has nothing to do with the book. Like there's times where you like read a synopsis and you feel like you know everything about the book because they literally gave you all of the clues in the synopsis. And then there's times where you read the synopsis, you don't really know what it's about. You read the book and you figure out that like you totally didn't even know what you were getting yourself into. This is definitely one of those books. So be forewarned that the synopsis like literally is not what you would think that the book is about. It's crazy. Now, what I'm really looking forward to is actually the discussion for this book. We are actually reading this book in May in my book club. And so if you want to join, go ahead. I have a link down below for you to join the book club and you can read and discuss with us. I'm super excited because I feel like some people have really disliked this book and some people have really loved it. And I'm curious to see what everyone thinks the actual story is. I'm curious to see what they thought of the ending. So that is one of the reasons why it's still a 4-star read for me, because it's going to be a great book club discussion book. Now moving along, I read A Stranger on the Beach by Michelle Campbell, and I believe that this book still is not released yet. I will go ahead and pop that up on the screen when it's actually going to be released, and I gave this book 4 stars. This is the 3rd book I've read by Michelle Campbell, and I thought it was pretty good. I really like her writing because, again, her writing is really easy. I can read her books in a day. It's more of a light thriller type of book. And so I just really enjoy her books and I love reading them. Now, this book is about this stranger on the beach that this lady meets, and she ends up having a fling with him even though she's still married. And then he starts stalking her and literally won't leave her alone, which is super crazy. And then her husband dies, he gets shot, but we're not sure if she shot him or if the stalker guy shot him. And there's just so many crazy things going on. Now, it wasn't the most thrilling read, and I thought that there were some boring parts in the actual book, which is why I rated it 4 stars, but it was a really good solid thriller, and especially if you're new to thrillers, you might actually really enjoy this book. The next thriller book that I read was A House at the Bottom of the Lake, and this was by Josh Malerman. And if you have not read Bird Box by Josh Malerman, you need to do that as soon as possible, because that's one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book, but I decided to read A House at the Bottom of the Lake, which is only my 2nd read by him, and I ended up reading it 4 stars. I feel like all of these are 4 stars right now, and I just felt that way because it just wasn't, I just really didn't know what was going on. It's a just novella story, so I think it was only 118 pages, but it's about these 2 teenagers that meet and decide to go out on a date. They decide that the date is going to be on the lake, and they find that there is a house under the water. So they decide to play house. And they get some scuba gear and stuff, and they are going under the house, and some really weird things happen, and you don't know if it's paranormal or what the heck it is. And so it was actually a really crazy read. I thought it was actually kind of scary. Some people don't think that, but I thought it was scary because it dealt with a lot of people's fears, claustrophobia and drowning, relationships, I think there's something else, but it's just super, super crazy. So you're reading about what they're actually doing. And I feel like this book kind of is reading your mind because, they were going through a tunnel, and I was oh my gosh, this is crazy. What if they get stuck in the tunnel? And then I feel the characters always said that out loud. They said what I was thinking, which was pretty cool. I actually really liked that. And I just really liked the, just the feeling of all of the real life fears. Part of it was a paranormal fear, and then part of it was a real life, yes, you could drown, or what if you did get stuck in there, or, something like that. And so it was a very lyrical writing, metaphorical book. So if you don't like that, then you probably don't want to read it. And if you don't like books that have an actual exact, this is how it ended, and this is the answer, then you probably won't want to read this book either, because it's kind of like Inception, if you've watched that movie, where you don't actually know what the ending is. And so definitely, if you're not that type of person, you might not want to read this book. But I thought it was a quick, easy read. I really enjoyed the creepiness of it. And if you've liked Bird Box by Josh Malerman, then you might want to check this book out. And then the last book for Thriller Thursday is My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. And I read this book, and it was very hard for me to rate because it's way different than any other thriller book that I've actually read. So this book is about a married couple who kills people for fun, as date night. And so it's just super crazy because the story is told from the husband's perspective, but the wife is kind of the serial killer. And so the husband's going out, and he's finding women, specific women, for his wife to kill. So like he'll pretend to be like this deaf guy, so that way they don't know like who he actually is. And he like stalks some women, and you know, he tries to figure out if they're like if they have anybody that like really cares about them, because like they don't want to get caught. And so he's like doing that like all day long, and then when he finds the perfect one, then the wife is the one that actually like kills them. And like he doesn't even know like how she kills them, he doesn't know what she does with them. It's just super crazy. The reason that I gave this book lower stars is because a lot of the story, I felt like nothing was really happening. Like we did have the backstory of like some of the things that happened in the past, and like their first couple killings and stuff like that. But then after that, I felt like nothing was really happening, or it was all the same thing happening, where he's trying to find a girl and that's not the right one, and then he picks a different one. And so I felt like there were like some boring parts. I was keeping a reading journal at this time of reading, because the other books I didn't have my reading journal yet, and I wrote down that 67% like there was still no twists and turns. There were no big reveals or anything like that. So if you like thrillers that just deal with kind of like blood and killing and stuff, then you probably would like this book. But if you're one of those people that like thrillers because you like the fast-paced thrills, you like the plot reveals and all that, then this probably is not the thriller for you. The ending of this book was pretty good. That's when the twist started picking up, but it still didn't have an epic ending like I really love in thrillers. And so to get a 5-star thriller rating from me, like it has to be a very like fast and great read, where, you know, like I can read it in a whole day because I'm just pulled into it. And then it also has to have a really good like twist at the end, and not something that I can guess. So all of those books that I just listed, I think they were all 4 stars. So I haven't had any epic reads recently, but if you've read any of these books and you rated them a different thing than I did, definitely let me know down in the comments like what you thought of these thrillers. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in another video. Bye everyone.